It's 8 o'clock.
And they're not even looking at you right now.
What are y'all talking about?
So you have the Mamdani,
I'm not. I feel like y'all giving this man too much press time.
the endorsement for Eric Adams, the movement of the Trump.
Nope. No comment. President
Yeah.
Trump is my president.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you and welcome to joining us right here today on The Village. I'm Roderick Daly. I am your host. You might hear some talking in the background. That is my brother. He's back there. I'm going to put him on the live in a minute. I just got to double check something. Thank you for watching, sharing, participating in The Village, where we are dedicated to empowering the community to live a healthy, safe, and financially capable life through education. Helping each one of us in realizing our dreams at any day, at any point, starting from today. I'm kind of somewhat going to be alone today. Um, Everybody's working on vacation. I did a little bit of vacation myself, so I understand the summer months is when everybody kind of have they have those times where they have to go out and enjoy the great festivities of the summer. So thank you so much for joining. Those of you who are stepping on, taking away from your very busy summer day to tune into The Village and enjoying the show. Um, so there are a lot of things that I want to talk about today, but I want to um, start with back to school. All right. So we're coming up on back to school. Actually, in some parts of the country, they're already in school since August 1st, depending on the state that you're in. So August 1st moving forward, they're already back in school. They're enjoying life, enjoying some warm weather in school. But you know what? I don't know. I'm so used to New York that you start school in September and you finish in June. But I think one of the problems I have with New York schools is that school is too long. Right? School is way too long. School should be finishing around the first week of June, right? Not not the last week of June. You're supposed to have um, you're supposed to have just around 180 days of school. Sometimes in New York you have close to 190, right? You have close to 190 days in school, and that's not fair, right? The vacation days, they cut them short, right? They cut the vacation days short. Christmas, you leave the day before Christmas, Christmas Eve. You come at the day after New Year's. So essentially, you have no time for yourself to go on vacation. And then I think I think Thanksgiving should be 1 week. I think Christmas should be 2 weeks, right? And spring break should be like a week and a half, right? Not these short days that they give for students. And I do believe also that they need to get rid of some of those holidays that they now throw in there. Is 1 day here, 1 day there. They need to get rid of them and make vacation a little bit longer so people truly can enjoy it. But one of the issues why they don't do that, right, is unfortunate, right? Why they don't do it. They don't do it because um, they they say that it costs parents too much to have babysitting, right? So school becomes, it doesn't even become a school, it becomes a babysitter, right? A place where people spend time um, babysitting their children. And so, what's the purpose? School is not supposed to be a place where um, you're there to provide babysitting for parents. It's supposed to be a place of learning. And we have always had the topic where a lot of parents, a lot of parents don't ever come to school. They don't participate in their they don't participate in their children's learning, right? They honestly, they don't spend any time, right? They don't spend any time at school. They don't, I've had parents who say, hey, this is my only time that I'm free. And honestly, they're not showing up. They don't come to nothing, but they're quick though um, to criticize the school, criticize the school system, and they're not right. It's better to be in school and not show up as parents, right? Not show up as parents, um, and say, "Hey, it's the school's responsibility." It's easy to play. What is it? Play the blame game.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Andre. Just getting started. Just talking about the back to school, and as a reminder, did you get on? Are you on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Not you. So change my name to your name, and then enter studio. Right. And then mute it, because then you're gonna get an echo. Right. And so, but it's great, right? Again, my vision of school is very simple. We need to have two components, and I think both components are equally important, right? Parents send your school children to learn, right? And again, my question is, right? My question is, everybody knows that, so why are the kids not learning, right? Why are the kids not learning? Right? And turn on.
I see Cameron ready to jump up.
Right? Yeah, there you go. Right. And so, I know that it's just sad, right? It's just sad that yes, we know, but no, we're not doing. Yes, we know, but so the two components is a social component. That's what's lacking in many schools, right? Learn a positive learning environment, right? Safety, interest, enrichment programs, extracurricular activities that enhance student government, debate team. You need a lot of these things, a lot more. At the beginning of the year, every student should fill out a questionnaire, a survey. What are your interests, right? What are your interests in coming to the school, right? How can we provide a great program for you, right? And so at the end of the day, right, at the end of the day, what piques your interest to the fullest? What do you think? And welcome, Dr. Jay Cameron, for joining with us today. Dr. Jay is in the education system, right? He's a school leader, and just talking about, the purpose of school. What do you think are some positive things that would help a school out to make them more successful? As a school leader, just talk without it. Yeah, just talk without it.
Good evening, everybody. What would be I'm sorry, repeat your question again.
Or if Roger muted himself and Cameron unmuted yourself, then.
Oh yeah, I can do that too. Do that too. So let me do that. Let me mute myself, and then Cameron, go ahead, Cameron.
No, so good evening, everybody.
Go ahead now.
Test. Are you muted?
Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Same thing.
So you gotta mute yours. Turn your volume all the way down.
You didn't mute my mic.
All right, third time's a charm.
Patrick, turn down your volume. Turn down your volume.
I don't have my volume. I turned my volume off.
Test. It's better now? All right, so talk to me. What was the question again?
So the question was, what do you think would make students, what are some of the things that you think that need to happen to increase graduation rate, especially at the high school level for students, and increase academic performance?
So invariably, you think about efforts that need to be made to increase graduation rates. You can't just look at what's happening at the high school level, right? You have to scale all the way back down to the foundations, because if a child is demonstrating difficulty to transition successfully through high school, it didn't just start at the 9th grade level, right? And then you scale back down to a different grade band. It didn't just start at the middle school level. You kind of have to go back to foundations, right? And identify what is it that was missed at the elementary level, or even from home, to ensure that young people are coming to schools armed with the necessary skill sets in order to be successful. So one of the greatest predictor of a student's ability to persevere through high school and ultimately through college is his or her performance on the algebra regent, at least here in New York State, right? And so we've seen across the board, if a child is struggling just in that content area alone, we know that high school in and of itself will be difficult. So I think school leaders have to think strategically and almost think outside of the box as it relates to what needs to be done to really provide those structures that the child may not have had in the earlier grades, to ensure that they're successful in their setting, right? And I think that's the first place that we need to start looking.
What do you think about the importance of parent involvement in that? I mean, yes, we go back to foundations.
12 years,
12
right?
years, yeah.
I think this is going on your 12th year.
Yep.
That you're principal. What makes you want to stay? Everybody can complain how hard it is, and you have had opportunities to move up, but I want to stay as principal, right? So what are some of those things that make you want to stay?
You know what? That's an interesting question. So it does get harder every year, right? In terms of just the respective demands that school leaders have, right? And it also varies at different levels, right? So a principal of a school of 4,000 plus will have a different experience than someone in a school as small as mine with a little bit over 300, right? But what keeps me staying every year is I like the adrenaline rush that I get in figuring out the master schedule, right? Just sitting with my team and thinking about all the demands, all the needs that we have to meet, and really working miracle each and every day as it relates to what needs to be done in order to change the outcome of the young people that we serve. In terms of opportunities, yeah, over the years I've gotten a few opportunities to kind of move outside of the school leadership entity, if you will. I've chosen not to take those opportunities because I personally believe that being in the building is the safest place. And I don't like to take professional risks, right? New York City is mayorally controlled, and especially with the climate that we have now, I just don't like the uncertainty of where my professional trajectory will go. And so honestly, I choose to stay because of the students, right? Because I think they keep you real, they keep you honest, and keep you focused on what the real work is. But I don't want to make this an interview of me. Let's talk about the real issues going on in education.
Well, I think that, I don't know, my computer's a little slow today. I don't know what's going on. But can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? All right, Andre, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So one of the issues how do you think academic rigor, how do you think our students overall, right? Overall, in the public school, establish overall, right? Academic rigor, academic success as it compares to private school or charter school or any other. What do you think?
So I never like to think of it from a comparative standpoint, right? Because when you look at the three types of schooling, charter, public, and private, there are different matrices, if you will, or measures of success that each has to meet, right? And don't kill me for saying this, but I think one of the biggest hurdles that we have as public school educators is teacher unions, right? And I think sometimes the demands of teacher unions kind of prevent what rigor looks like across the board. And of course, that will look differently in each school. But I do think children have a greater advantage in the public school space because they're getting a much more holistic approach to education. The major difference on the private school level is that parents can afford to give their children more, right? But there's a level of diversity, there's a level of exposure that children will get in public spaces that they may not necessarily get in the charter or the parochial and private spaces.
Benev, Village Pessimist, how are you doing, Benev? First of all, thank you, welcome. Oh wait, before I forget, although I know she's not on air, I'm gonna make sure I say it publicly. Happy birthday to my sister, Julene. It was her birthday. Happy birthday to my cousin Michael, whose birthday was Sunday. My sister's birthday was Monday. Unfortunately, today, marks 4 years that I think I lost the greatest mother-in-law in the world. So today marks exactly 4 years. So that's very sad, but I'd like to acknowledge her and Florence Letts Johnson, who passed away, so quick and so sudden, So Benev, our Village Pessimist, I had the opportunity to do both, right? Both public and private, or somewhat private, right? Because I went away for my last 2 years of high school, which is it was still public, but somewhat private, right? I live in a house with my ABC brothers and my Better Chance brothers, and then we went to school every day. Being offered a lot of those things that Dr. Cameron spoke about, right? And that is that the diversity in public school, I believe that you have a natural diversity, right? In private school, it's kind of like forced. Like children are forced to interact with other cultures, right? Because it's basically, if they don't incorporate that in the curriculum, it's kind of not there. But whereas in public school, the diversity is already there, depending on what school you're going to. I mean, some schools are very white, some schools are very black, some schools are very Asian, depending on the area. But when you get to high school, you get a lot more diversity, right? I mean, you're a principal of all males, male school, but you still have level of diversity.
No, absolutely.
Within that school.
So even to the point that Benev made about, I'd love to hear what she says. She sees all of these issues, specifically speaking of which, I'll give you an example why I say sometimes children have more advantages. So I was at work this week and I got a random phone call. Everyone had left, and so the phone rang. I happened to be in the main office. I answered the phone, and it was a woman who is looking to enroll her child in a New York City public school. And she said specifically my school. The child is coming into the 8th grade, but here's the catch. She has been prepping her child for the specialized high schools test for the last 7 years. And the only way her child could sit the test is if the child is enrolled in a New York City public school. But here's the other catch. She's not a New York City resident. So the family lives in Philadelphia, and she is making efforts now to relocate, not with the whole family, just she and the child, to relocate to New York City for 1 year so that the child can sit the exam in October, right? Because she's convinced that he's going to pass the test, right? And he's going to get a seat in specialized high schools in New York City. I say all of that to say that speaks, if you will, to the level of rigor that exists, not in all schools, but in some schools, right? So if New York City public schools didn't have something attractive, then that woman wouldn't want to leave state lines, move to an entire city just for a portion of the school year, just to get what a lot of our children, and when I say our children as a community, aren't getting, right? Because when you look at the diversity, it's still an issue, if you will, in certain sectors more than others.
And you hear numerous examples of, I've seen, numerous examples of those across my tenure in education, where, your principals actually got fined, right?
Mhm.
Because they were living in another state.
Yep.
And they enrolled their children in New York City by using a fictitious address. And teachers and other families, they live in Long Island, they live in New Jersey, and they put their address down for New York City address for our kids to go to New York City public schools, because of and the one thing also that I like about New York City public schools, a lot of times they do offer additional help to ensure that students are learning or have the ability to learn. One of the things that I know that we really have a lot of topics. So let's move. You're not really here to talk about education a little bit. You're just here to be part of the show today. So let's go to Andre. You're kind of a little bit quiet today. Is that everything all right?
I had a question, but we're so deep in. But one of the things that Cameron talked about was just the foundation aspect of students, of what students need, so that way they can perform better in the later years. And I was talking to some of my colleagues a week ago about one of the other important factors, which is parent engagement. And I just think that, to me, that's probably the number one, or it's on that same level as the foundation, because I just imagine, even when we were growing up, there's no reason why it can't be the same, similar today. But if you had parents who were so involved, they would be reaching out to teachers on a continual basis, and those teachers, or even just the staff in the school, make sure that the kid is getting what they need to. Because, parents, I think, has so much power in the school system. The minute they go to, hey, Mr. Cameron, such and such teacher didn't do, no, Mr. Cameron, Mr. Doman, what's going on? Imagine here so much of that there now. Teachers gonna make sure that they're on point, right? So I think it just trickled down. So I was even thinking, like, how, is there like even workshops, PD, where parents, teach parents to be parents? That's like something you're probably not supposed to necessarily do, but even something like that, to let some parents know, these are the things that you gotta do. As I remember going home, and my mom would ask me, if you get homework, let me say no. She's taking that bag, search through the bag, reaching out to the teacher. So, what do you think? Parent engagement, and the student learning at the earlier grade level. Is there one above the other, or they build on each other? Like, thoughts on that? That was what my question was. Roger, you muted. Well, both of y'all muted, so somebody got unmute.
Unmute. You unmuted? Oh, no, you muted. So unmute. So one of the things that I always look at things in this regard, right? There are 5 components, 5 stakeholders in my mind to make a school system work. And it's not that. I think the most important component is the students, right? That's the most important. The second to that would be the parents, right? And then after that comes, very close to curriculum. Our curriculum could be 1, right? So we could put curriculum at 1. Then comes the teachers, right? Teachers, administrators, and then after that, the system, right? The system, which includes the auxiliary, the superintendent, the school aides, the this, the that, the school safety agents, those become very necessary in the mind of why is the students and the curriculum 1 and 2, right? They're 1 and 2 simply because if the students are willing to learn intrinsically as opposed to extrinsically, which means they don't need incentives. They want to learn. They want to do what they have to do. They will learn, right? They will sit in a classroom in a negative area, negative environment, and learn. If the parents provide resources at home and keep track of the teachers, keep track of what the students are doing, keep track of what the school is doing, the children are going to learn. Obviously, having the top level teachers that now becomes important, right? But it has to be teachers with growth mindset. If they just don't have a growth mindset, like if they have the my way or the highway concept, the kids are not going to learn, right? Obviously in every system, every type of teacher, students will learn, but the majority of students will not learn from a teacher who thinks that you have to do everything my way, right? And then obviously the system, what is the system providing for the students? Are they making sure that there's lunch, there's good lunch, right? Are they making sure that they're programming physical education and getting an enrichment program and extracurricular activity for the kids and all those different things, right? So all of those stakeholders are vital for the growth of a student. And you need to have a school leadership where they actually are true to the vision and mission of the school, right? And what the school is supposed to be about. And you remind students of that. You remind students of those things. So safety is one of those components, right? The safety of the children in your school is vital, right? Children are not gonna, no matter what, children are not gonna learn if they're getting bullied. They're not gonna learn if they don't feel safe coming into the school. I mean, you can't do anything much about the community, but in the school must feel like a safe haven for that kid. So it's everything, right? Everything, the allocation of time, blah, 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 all those different things become factors. And is responsible of the entire set of stakeholders to make sense. I want to, we're getting close to, there's a lot of things going on politically that I wanted to get to. It's now 8:30, so 3 things of political interest. And thank you, Sophia, for ensuring that we're up to speed and what's going on in our world and community. Thank you to our producer, Sophia, for that. 3 big things that happened. Today, Mamdani is doing the 5-borough tour against Trump and against Andrew Cuomo. Today, he went to Staten Island, where yesterday, where he was booed, right? He was booed off the stage. Eric Adams picked up a major endorsement from former Governor David Paterson, who was the first and only Black governor of New York State, and fully disabled, as far as you know. I mean, vision impaired. So he picked up that endorsement. Trump moving Obama and George Bush pictures to an isolated area in the White House where nobody can see them, right? And lastly, they were bringing in the guards in Washington, D.C. I mean, let's spend a couple of minutes and dissecting all of those, right? I'm not a major fan of Mamdani, right? I believe that I've said it before, and I'll say it again. His economic and social approach to New York City is going to cost the middle-class families too much money, right? It's going to hurt the landlords. He's not creating a balance, right? And he's bringing the city further left. We have too many leftist ideas with that regressive taxes on the middle class, the low income families, the middle class families, and then just going to be more, right? Small landlords are going to be paying 4 or 5 family units are going to pay, while he himself live in a rent stabilized apartment that's meant for the poor, while he's a 6-figure income, right? 142,000 if he becomes the governor. I mean, the mayor, he now has a $450,000, $400,000 salary, living in an apartment for a low income family, right? The bus fare that he wanted, bus fare for free. So who's going to pay for that? Who is going to pay for the MTA, which is already overcharging? If you drive, you pay taxes to get around the city back and forth. If you go to the Bronx and come back, you're paying $14 on the Whitestone or any of the bridges, right? If you go to Staten Island and come back, you're paying $23, right? And then now you have the congestion prices in Manhattan. So to go from Staten Island to the Bronx, driving through Manhattan, you're paying over $30 in tolls, and to go back and forth, right? So, and now he's moving the city further left, which is not going to cost people more money. While at the same time, you have Donald Trump, who is continuous petty behavior. Each president has been given a location in the White House. So you take a picture, you take a spot, you get a spot in the White House. Why do you care that Barack Obama didn't endorse you, or George Bush Jr. didn't endorse you, right? What do you care? You're a 2-term president. You've been elected twice, but yet still you want to show, like America, that you can be petty.
Yeah,
right?
The massive ego, man.
Yeah, the ego issue, right? Care to comment, Jermaine?
You?
So at the expense of being canceled, I'm gonna reserve my political opinion because I'm a Donald Trump fan. So yeah, all right. But let me go to the mom. Everybody's looking at me like what? So let me not say I'm a Donald Trump fan. I do share a lot of Republican ideals, and so from a political standpoint, I look at platforms and I look at policies, right? And so what concerns me about Mamdani is just his approach to the level of rollbacks, if you will, that he wants to apply, right? So when we think about, I think about the world through the lens of my profession. So I'm an educator. I'm going to die an educator, right? And just thinking about what he wants to do, he wants to kind of repeal mayoral control of New York City public schools and put it back in a state where it was when I started my career some years ago, right? I don't necessarily think I agree with that. I've seen what the state of education was when we were on the school boards versus now when it's under mayoral control. And so I've not quite gotten a thorough understanding of why he wants to go that route, right? And so that's an area of concern for me. As it relates to just his stance, he has scaled back on the whole concept of defunding the police. He's talked about making public transportation free. I always think about those of us in the working middle class who will suffer greatly, right? Because the way our society is functioning now, the only way you get any level of break or reprieve is either you're making an astronomical amount, or you're at the very bottom. And those of us who are tethering that middle ground, the only way that we're going to see some level of breakthrough is if we try to avoid getting this young man in the office. I don't really have a comment on what President Trump did. So I'm going to reserve my thoughts on that at the expense of being canceled.
You're not going to be canceled. I like the fact that you like Trump's ideology because it gives a different perspective.
So you know what I can appreciate about his presidency his presidency. I think it brings a level of stability to the nonsense that has been happening in our society. Right? There's this level of wokeness that has happened over the last couple of years, where so let's look at what was happening on our college and university campuses, right? As it relates to the endless levels of protest that's endangering lives of so many individuals. That has come to an end. When we look at what was happening in sports as it relates to the inclusion of transgender athletes in the different sports entities, right? We're seeing how a lot of schools are scaling back on these policies, right? And for me, I look at those types of things as it relates to what his presidency is bringing to the quote unquote normalcy of our lives, right? And for me, that's one entity that I can appreciate. As it relates to what he did with with Obama and Bush Jr., listen, I just think this man is a masterminder at pulling strings, right? And I think he knows what's necessary to keep himself relevant. And I think he has done that masterfully well. What I'm looking forward to most is to hear the outcome of his meeting that should take place in Alaska tomorrow. That's what I'm most curious about. But I'm not going to lose much sleep over the fact that he's moving a picture to a least conspicuous area. The man have to do that, right? Because I mean, as the person in charge, you kind of have to shake things up and create a level of controversy that will spark conversation for days on end. So that's my 2 cents.
I mean, he really wants people to stop focus on all of the Epstein stuff. So he's trying to like do all these other things, so that way people can be distracted by that. So it's like ego, pettiness, controversy, as you say. That's all I gotta say. You're muted, though, Roderick. So
create a level of controversy that will spark conversation for days on end.
Guys.
My always concept is that he does one thing to do something else greater that keeps your mind off the stupidness of what he's doing.
And that's what politicians do.
Say it again. I didn't hear you.
But I think that's what politicians do, even though he's.
What was the last question, Andre?
Campaigned and his his allies talk about him or describe him as not being a politician. But I think he's a very, very strategic politician, right? That's what they do. In terms of, I forgot what the political term is, but I'm sure there's one for it, where he does these seemingly minor things to cause a bigger distraction, from the bigger issues that are happening. And we know what those things are. But exactly. And
focused on maybe
even though he's
correct.
Campaigning on him or describing
focused on the border.
I think he's a very
you didn't focus,
and he focused on groceries, like grocery prices. Right, so he scaled it down to things that were local and immediate to people.
And we know what those.
And then that's what.
By the way, that's how we win the election.
That's what the news bites on the media outlets ran with, and that's what gave him traction, gained him traction, and that's what ultimately landed him in the White House, which is, I believe, is what's going to happen with Mamdani. Right, I think platforms like this, platforms like the other mainstream media outlets. Are giving him a free ride, if you will, to Gracie Mansion in a few short months.
Which is, I believe, platforms.
What about what's going on in DC?
Are giving him
with the National Guard about
Gracie Mansion.
I mean, what is the level of violence that you called out? National Guard. And now, I mean, what is the you mentioned something about scaling back on the police. You mentioned something about scaling back on.
Yep.
I am extreme police friendly. I'm police friendly. That Yeah,
the need
I
for
am
policing is
extreme
vital
police,
and
I find
important
that
within our
the need for
communities.
policing
We,
is
we,
vital.
in one breath, we want to talk about
within our
defunding the police, but
because
within our black communities, you have
police, within our black
the
communities,
most major
the-
crimes,
the-
right? Most
major crimes, right? Most happenings of
and then we need protection,
Um,
right?
and then we need protection.
We need
right?
protection from each other.
We need protection from each other many times.
And so
And so
the need to call in
the
the
need to
National
call in
Guard
the
for
National
protection.
Guard for
But that means
protection.
that you have the federal government.
But that means that you have
interfering
the
in
federal
local
government
Mhm.
interfering in
Right.
local
police. Shows
policing.
that you really can
Right.
control
Shows that you really can
your
control
your city.
your
Mhm.
I need help.
your
So
city.
is it a
I need help.
reflection of the
So
president
is
of
it
the
a
United States
reflection
or a
of the
reflection of
United
local
States?
government?
Or
I think
reflection?
it starts from
I think it's-
the top down,
Starts from the
right?
right.
It is definitely a reflection
It is
on the life and times of our society, generally speaking. So it's certainly a reflection of him, but it's also a direct reflection of the governance of the district capitals. When we look at the types of crimes that are happening, right?
Right.
Let's scale back.
Let's scale back.
We know that sometimes
know that
crimes can be concentrated in certain neighborhoods, right? And then certain neighborhoods may be overly populated by a certain demographic, right?
Right.
And we know the dynamic of DC. And you look at the types of crimes that are happening. I think I agree with his intervention in ensuring that there's some level of law and order, because when you look at the types of crimes that are happening, or in the last 2 days, the number of arrests that were made, the number of guns that were confiscated off the streets, right? The curtailing of the nonsensical behavioral patterns of our young people. I think it's necessary, and I believe, right? I believe if local government are not doing what we voted them in to do, the responsibility of the federal government is to ensure that I can walk on my street safely, that I can leave my home, go to work, and return back to my house safely. And if local government is not doing that, then the powers that be on the federal level need to intervene and ensure that is happening. So I'm in full support of that.
Dr. Cameron, one of the things
Dr. Cameron, one of the things that
is reflected in this is what's going on in Jamaica.
Reflected in this is what's going on.
You know
in Jamaica,
that
right?
they have a list.
They have
Right.
they have a list, right?
They have a list.
They have a list of people who are committing
right?
these heinous
And
crimes,
so-
right? And so,
Right.
Target them, go after
Right.
them, annihilate them.
Right. So
right,
if
and
you
so
do the chart,
if you do
right,
the chart,
so,
right? So
where Jamaica has now experienced about 14
period with weekly murders
below 50.
Right?
The
Right.
longest
The longest
stretch
stretch
in 25 years. Right.
And
Right.
how did they accomplish that? What were they doing?
They
Specifically targeted.
They
criminals,
aggressively targeted them. So if they know, if you're on their wanted list, if you are a self-identified bad man, them a come for you and them a wipe you. And I agree with that. Look. So when I talk about safety and discipline in my world, I always go back to what's the mayor? What's his name? Giuliani did. Remember when his life changed after his mayoral tenure. But one of the things that he did to ensure that we regained some level of quality of life in New York City was he went after those who were committing those minor crimes, right? Because those individuals, so for example, he got rid of the squeegee men. They implemented stricter penalties for something simple as jaywalking, what else? Jumping the turnstiles and all those different things. Like they aggressively prosecuted those individuals, because when you drill down further and look at recidivist data, those are the individuals who ultimately are committing those larger crimes over time periods. So I think as a society, we've become so relaxed as it relates to law and order. And I think that's what was happening in DC now should be a telltale signs for all the other major cities around our nation, that are not stepping up to the plate and doing what's necessary to ensure that there's a level of quality of life around public safety that is still being guaranteed to citizens.
You know, last year, the murder rate in Jamaica, right? You have about 40 people per 100,000, right? And Jamaica has about 1.5 million people, right? And so you have close to 1,600 murders last year. This year, the government is looking at less than 800, right? Which to me, you know, Jamaica is known for three negative things. I mean, it's known for some positive things, but the three major negative things that Jamaica is known for is one, beggy. Like they're always begging, their hands are always up, begging for different things. Churches, that Jamaica has more churches, more denominations of churches per capita, per square mile than any other part of the world. And then murder, right? Violence. That those three, and not necessarily in that order, right? And so to see that one of them, like I've always said, that if I were one of the leaders of Jamaica, I would not try to create more churches, right? I would try to ask churches to begin the process of consolidating, right, within a community, and lessen the number, because you go to, you know, when you have so many churches, like they're all dispersed, they're all, you know, they're 10, 15 people, you can't really do anything but start consolidating churches of the same denomination, right? Instead of having one Seventh-day Adventist here, and then you walk a half mile to see another one, or one Church of God here, you walk, you know, half a mile, there's another one. Why not consolidate, right? That's one thing. Not that you should cut out churches. That's not what I'm saying, but minimize the number. And, you know, love what they're doing with the gunmen, right? And we need to also start teaching our society not to be so wanty and so licky, right? Because that affects what's going on, right? I would get rid of a lot of those by the way stalls that try to consolidate commerce, right? Create like more malls, more areas that people who are vendoring, for lack of a better word, they would have a place. Like every area you have a place to find a vendor of this and that, instead of having a stall here. So like Uniclock, Dr. Uniclock did, and continue with Matthew Eugene, and
Kendall Stewart.
not Kendall Stewart, Matthew Eugene and Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, right? Where they build the flea market over there at Caton Avenue and try to bring the vendors in. And we need more of those things to consolidate, get them off the street. I mean, I represent an area, and then I had to have an action at Utica and Church, right? Because when you go outside the Utica and Church, it was nasty, it was disgusting. It didn't look good. So I'm glad that
take a look at what's happening on Eastern Parkway and Utica Avenue.
Yeah,
it's like it's like a market.
Yes, it's like dirt infested. And so I think, as you talked about the quality of life, like if you're able to improve the quality of life in many areas, that's what's happening in Jamaica. You're getting rid of the scammers, you're getting rid of this, you're getting rid of that. That is helping. And those things would help to, and then make education more accessible, right? Make education, like pay your teachers, pay your police officers so they don't start getting bribery, pay your public servant, right? Many other countries like Trinidad, like Barbados and Europe, some European countries, the value in their dollar is greater because of their belief in safety and education. If you take your children and seniors, take care of safety, you have a better environment. And I guess we all have different theories about how that would be done, but those are some of my theories based upon what I've seen or what I've observed and what I've read. Andre, you're back. Welcome. We were just talking about the Trump situation, how safety becomes a prevalent piece, and I brought up what's going on in Jamaica, reduction of crime, and we're talking about Washington, D.C. and the National Guard. Any comments?
kind of like follow up more on the. No comments right now.
Okay, all right, not a problem. The next big thing is Florida. They're building a new.
They're building a
They're
new,
building a new immigration. A new immigration piece down there in Florida that can hold about 2,000 immigrants. That was Donald Trump's platform. Ron DeSantis loved the idea and he's running with it. So, what do you think? What's going on? Do you think it's necessary? Do you think the push? You know, a lot of people are upset about it, but I'm like, but you voted him in, and he never lied about his platform and pushing out immigrants and making America white again, right? And that, so not all those people who thought they were white, because I'm not worried about the black people he's deporting, because it's the Hispanics who voted on the white line because they can't associate themselves. They believe that they're black, right? Or that they're people of color. They believe that they're white and Caucasian American, and now they're now affected this. And I know I'm controversial, so any thoughts? What do you think? Good idea, bad idea? Like, should people begin to leave this alone because now it's no longer that important rhetoric as it would be in the first 6 months? Or do you believe that you need to keep the conversation going? So that he begins to understand and see that you need immigrants in the United States, because again, my purview and the national studies show that immigrants do more low-income jobs than born American or people who have naturalized American citizens who have lived there for years, right? So thoughts? Start with you, Andre.
You're saying if we should leave this conversation alone or keep having it? That's the question. I mean, I would say keep having it, but it also feels circular at times. I do agree. Immigrants do a lot of the low income jobs, but at the same time, there's a unfairness there as well. But also understand, why, in a sense of them not having maybe like the documents, so employer may not necessarily look at them as as qualified as needed, so they can give them the compensation that they feel like would be best. So the conversation around that still needs to happen. In terms of the detention center, I never really agree with the detention centers themselves. As far as anything else regarding that, I don't really have much more. We're always going to have immigrants coming in the country, especially people look at, America is always seen as land of opportunity. So people are always gonna come here. It just comes down to how do you, what's the word I'm looking for? Like what people have seen during Biden's or the Democrats' administration, a lot of immigrants come through. And then the Republican administration, and even Trump, trying to push a lot of immigrants out of the country. And it's just this back and forth in different administrations. So it's gonna be a continuous conversation, and the conversation, I think, centered around how do we make sure that people are here, it's in a legal way, but also be mindful not to separate families, or how do you ensure safe returning and then people doing it the accurate way. I think it's just a controversial aspect itself. I don't know if there's really or rather I don't necessarily know what exactly they could do right now. So
I think that the rhetoric in America has to change. the media has to stop portraying America like a land of opportunity. So, like you said, it's a land of opportunity, right? So if you stop portraying America as that, because other countries don't do it for their own country, even though they're successful countries, right? China, many European countries, they don't do it.
Well, I mean, it's because
right?
you can come to America.
If you go to United Emirates, right, it's hard to become. It is.
But
you understand, like if you go to United Arab Republic, the outsiders are not given. United Arab Republic, when you're born, you're given land, you're given money, your family's given money, right? When you get married, you're given property, right? They're building up, they look great. But for you to get that, right? For you to get that, you're not getting it, right? You can't come to, you could work, but you pay higher taxes, right? You get some of the stores and you cannot become, right? You cannot get the same set of incentives that they give citizens. For you to become a citizen of United Arab Republic, you have to do like 6 generations married, your wife, the son, the father, and all of these have to pass you on. If you're a woman, forget it. Males is easier than women to become citizens in this place. So maybe America needs to stop looking at themselves as a place of opportunity and make it. And I guess that's what Trump is trying to do, right? Or the Republican Party is trying to remove, Grayson, remove the easiness to become a citizen of the United States or a legal person here in the United States. But it's too aggressive how he did it, right? He did it too aggressively. And that's affecting our economy and the skyrocketing prices. And I tell people all the time, prices don't go down. They keep staying up. They never go down. We have a couple of minutes left, guys. We have a couple of minutes left. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
I just want to make one
go ahead, Cameron.
One comment on what you just said. So
Roger got to turn on his volume.
So the conversation has to continue, right, as it relates to regarding immigration. But I think what sometimes when we get up in arms about what we're hearing in the media is that we sometimes forget that this was the very platform that the president ran on, right? This was what the president pledged to do if he were elected. And so politicians have to play to their base, right? And sometimes the unintended outcome is that those of us who champion for a particular cause on a particular politician's platform may not come out as a benefactor, right? And sometimes the very causes that they advocated for will work adversely against them, which is what we're seeing now down in Florida. But I'll say this, with all the reformations with immigration reform, I don't think we're going to see the direct impact just yet until the next presidency, right? So in 3 years, is it 3 years before the next presidential election, right? Watch and see whomever that next president is, they're the ones who are going to will be faced with the heavy lift of repairing the harm done under the current presidency. That's my 2 cents.
All of those are valid points, right? I think the stump speeches The stump speeches are going to be rally around that concept moving forward, and they're honestly going to take a page out of Donald Trump's book, right? They really are going to take a page out of Donald Trump's book and see how he navigated the system to win the election. I want to say, before I forget, early next week, I want to say happy birthday. 3 people will be having birthday on the same day for me. My favorite niece, Kavia, will be having a birthday on August 20th. My favorite cousin's having a birthday on August 20th. Both of my favorite cousins, one on the one side, one on the next side, Tamika and Rose, will be having their birthday next week, August 20th. A couple other people having birthdays. I know our friend Mrs. Cummins will also having a birthday, but hers will come after the next show. And I hope everybody has done something or will be doing something to enjoy their summer. And I did mention it last week, but again, just a moment of silence for my sister, who would have been 46 last week, Thursday, and last week's show. Any other comments? Jermaine, Dr.
No,
Kevin.
just always interesting. So I tune into the Village every week, whether I'm at work or driving home. Definitely like hearing the different thoughts, and seeing where the work has come from inception to where it is now. I wasn't an invited guest tonight. I was bullied into joining, but great conversation nonetheless. Andre, big up yourself. Hold tight. If I don't see you before the school year begins, have an amazing school year. It's time to get out of that classroom, man. Different ways.
Same to you.
Be safe, everybody.
Yeah, man. Hey, Roger, you're muted. So yeah, I don't know if you're saying something. All right, villagers, have a safe weekend, and be great. Peace out.
All right. Thank you, all the villagers who came on, like, subscribe, and also make sure you share the Village Radio Talk Show. Share with a friend. Click on the link. Make sure, most of all, you like and subscribe. Like and subscribe, and tell somebody to do the same. God bless each and every one of you, where we continue to be dedicated to empowering the community to live a healthy, safe, and financially capable life through education, helping each one of us to achieve our goals at any point, at any time. Where success is not just spoken, it is done. Thank you at any age, at any time. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.